you so much for being here today. And this is a panel discussion for resources for new and expected parents, but also for people who are thinking that they may want to have a child or adopt a child sometime in the future. So just some housekeeping items during the panel discussion. Please keep yourself on mute today. We will be recording the webinar so that we can post it on our website. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the webinar where we will turn off the recording function. And of course, you can send any personal questions or things that you don't want to share in front of the group directly to one of the panelists and to the Work Life office if you wish, and we'll provide those email addresses as we go through. Actually, Nicole, if you want to put that in the chat, that would be great. Just the worklife@uw.edu is a great email to get your work life questions answered. Throughout the presentation today, you may have some questions. Please feel free to put those in the chat. Nicole is here to be our chat moderator. Thank you so much, Nicole, for doing all that. I appreciate it. And then we hope that time permits, we will be able to do a Q&A at the end of the event. So we'll try to get through as much content as quickly as possible. Before we begin, we just want to acknowledge that we live and work on the traditional territories of the Duwamish and Coastal Salish peoples, and that we occupy their land. While we recognize that this acknowledgement does not replace authentic relationships with Indigenous communities, we hope that it honors with gratitude the land and the original inhabitants. And now I'd love to introduce our panelists today. Erin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Erin Rice. I'm the AVP for Campus HR Operations and Services, and really happy to be a part of this panel.
Thanks, Erin. And Mara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, thank you. I'm Mara. I'm a student studying public health with a nutrition focus at the University of Washington, Seattle. I'm also a registered dietitian and certified lactation specialist with a background in working in lactation support. And I'll be talking about what aspects to be thinking about with return to work as far as lactation and some resources at the UW to help support you during that process.
Thanks so much, Mara. We're really lucky to have you here today. Barry, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. Afternoon, everybody. My name is Barry Nemeth. I am the Director of Benefits here at UW Central HR, and I'll discuss a little bit about how your employer-sponsored benefits will work as an expecting or new parent.
Thanks, Barry. And I'm Jessica Cole. I will serve as your host and a panelist today. And I will represent the work-life resources that are available and a couple of extra resources through transportation that I think you'll want to know about. So I'm going to hand this off to Erin Rice. We'll start with leave options.
Okay, great. First of all, congratulations to all of the new parents and new parents to be out there. I know you have a lot on your mind, so please take this time to relax. There's no need to memorize anything. As I understand it, the slides will be available after the presentation, and please know that we are here for you. So, one more little intro note. As I cover the various leave options, I'll be doing it from a staff perspective. I have contacts for academic personnel and for students at the end of the presentation. And when I discuss PFML, paid family and medical leave, that really should be the same for all of the populations who are eligible. So hopefully that will be helpful. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so as the slide states, parental leave at the university, good news and bad news. The bad news is simply that parental leave is complicated. There are a lot of multiple overlapping state and federal laws, UW policies, and union contracts. I'd like to think the good news is, more important. The good news is that there are specialists to help you navigate them so that you can get the leave plan that works for you. And again, if you take nothing else away from my part of the presentation, remember that for campus staff, my team, HR Leaves is here to help, and I will again have contacts for other populations at the end of the show, or at the end of my part of the show. So I will cover each one of these questions in the next few minutes. Again, the slides will be available, and there are both contacts and resources at the end. We find that people want to know, how long can I take leave? Do I have to take all that leave at once? How do I get paid? That's a big one. How do I maintain my benefits? And then how do I kick off this process? How do I request leave? And yes, I do have notes down here. I don't want to forget anything important. All right, so first, when we talk about parental leave, if you are a birth parent, we are really talking about two different periods. Birth parents can take 6 to 8 weeks for temporary pregnancy disability, sometimes called postpartum disability, sometimes called postnatal period. I'm going to stick with temporary pregnancy disability. So it's 6 to 8 weeks. We usually say 6 for a non-cesarean birth, 8 weeks for a cesarean birth, but really it is as prescribed by your healthcare provider immediately following the birth. So that's one part of what we refer to generally as parental leave. Basically, for birth parents, Washington state law recognizes a medical part of the leave and a family part of the leave, and that's how PFML also refers to it. So the other part, the family phase, bonding leave, time to bond with your new child, whether that child is someone that was just born to your family or you're adopting or having placed with you, that bonding leave starts after the temporary disability period for birth parents and after birth or placement for non-birth parents. Next. How long can I take leave? So under UW policy, union contracts, and civil service rules, and hopefully you know which one of those applies to you, parental leave, which is the part, again, after temporary disability for a birth parent, is 4 to 6 months, depending on which policy or contract applies to you. For FMLA, the FMLA period, 12 weeks minus any FMLA you've already used within the last year, runs at the same time as pregnancy, disability, and parental leave. It's not a separate leave period. And for paid family and medical leave, eligible birth parents, you can receive up to 16 weeks of benefits. So that's a leave period, up to 18 if you have pregnancy complications. And non-birth parents can receive up to 12 weeks. Next slide. And yeah, I think, you know, the point was made in there, but I'll just say it again. For folks who are eligible for all of those things, they will run concurrently. So do I have to take it all at once? So UW parental leave is generally taken as a full leave of absence, or if it meets business needs and has the approval of your unit, can be granted as intermittent leave or a modified work schedule. And that is the same actually for FMLA. Leave covered by PFML can be taken intermittently or on a reduced schedule for the 12 months following the date of a child's birth, adoption, or placement. And actually the UW parental leave part should say that same thing. It is available for up to 12 months following the birth or placement. And so I keep mentioning all of these different things, and you might think, why? Because a lot of parental leave planning is very individual. You may be a new parent to the state and to UW, and FMLA and PFML is not going to apply to you, but UW parental leave still will. So I'm going to keep sort of mentioning all of them. And that becomes super important for how do I get paid? So you can use your accrued time off. And so we're talking about sick time off, vacation time, holiday credit, comp time, those kinds of accrued paid time off. You can think about parental shared leave. So that's when donations from other UW and other state employees can be used. Those are available to you if your vacation time off and sick time balances are reduced to 40 hours or less. So again, when you're thinking about planning, you need to think about what your goals are. Parental shared leave could be really useful to a new employee who doesn't have large accrued time off balances, or perhaps you don't have large accrued time off balances because you recently had another medical event. Not quite done there. Shared leave, parental shared leave does have a restriction that it can only be used for the 16 weeks following the disability period for birth parents and for the first 16 weeks following birth for non-birth parents. And yeah, I think, and then unpaid time off, it's on here. You're thinking that doesn't help me get paid, but you might be mixing up periods of paid time off with unpaid time off to maybe stretch out your leave time or to stretch out the time you're using PFML. So let's go on to PFML. So how do I get paid part 2? Some of you may be aware of paid family and medical leave. It was something new to the state of Washington in 2020. It is a program that is run by the state of Washington, and both UW and you, so through payroll tax and payroll deduction, pay for it. So you've earned it, we paid for it. How do you use it? It is like a short-term disability program. It also works kind of like unemployment benefits. It is in fact run by the same agency that runs unemployment benefits. That's ESD, Employment Security Department. So this is something that you will apply for and make weekly claims through the state, not through the University of Washington. And when you do that, first bullet, your PFML benefit can be up to 90% of weekly wages with $100 per week minimum, and in 2022, a $13.27 per week maximum. You basically establish an account with ESD and they'll approve a year period in which you can claim benefits within that year. And from the previous slide, you may recall there are 16 benefit weeks available, up to 18 if you have if you are the birth parent and you have pregnancy complications. Non-birth parents, again, it's 12 weeks of benefits within that first year. Second bullet, during a PFML leave, it's your choice whether to use accrued paid time off or not. So you can take PFML benefits and not use any of your paid UW time off, or you can take both at the same time. And that's that third bullet. Employees can receive both paid time off from UW and your PFML check for the same period. And this is called using supplemental benefits. Basically, when you use your sick or vacation time during your PFML approved period, you don't report those to the Employment Security Department. So they are making your benefit payment as if you didn't use any paid time off. So they're giving you the full amount. And I'm sure there's much more to talk about there. So you're getting paid by UW just like when you take vacation and receiving a benefit check at the same time. So PFML, again, is not run by the UW, it's run by the state of Washington. We do not make decisions on your ESD benefit. And taking PFML is not the same as requesting leave through the UW. You need to do both, right? You need to let your employer know that you're taking leave, and then we will try to do everything we can to help coordinate with the state to make sure that your plan with them matches your plan with us. I think there was a question submitted ahead of time about, can I work part-time and claim PFML benefits? Yes, absolutely. It will reduce your benefit, but that makes sense because you're working, so you're looking to receive partial benefits. And I should have mentioned on an earlier slide, how long do I have to take my benefits? PFML claim is a minimum of 8 hours. So PFML isn't as great for taking 2 hours off per day. What you can do is take 1 day off a week or 2 days or 3 days, whatever your plan is, but they need 8 consecutive hours. Another big question, how do I keep my health benefits while on leave? If you've worked for the UW for 12 months and 1,250 hours prior to taking your leave, then your health insurance continue just as if you're working. And that is for both FMLA and PFML. When we say benefits continue as if you're working, that means the UW continues to pay the employer portion and the employee continues to pay the employee portion. So after your FMLA or your PFML is exhausted, or if you aren't eligible for those benefits, you will need to remain in pay status to maintain your benefits. Pay status means you either use 8 hours of paid time off or work 8 hours a month. So I think when I was talking about how to get paid, I mentioned using unpaid time off. So you may want to use unpaid time off with 8 hours interspersed in there to make sure that your benefits are covered. But something also to think about is your benefits will be covered if you go out on parental leave on October 10th. So you'll have worked somewhere during that October 1 through October 10 period. So your benefits will already be covered for that month. By the same token, if you come back on the 20th of February, then you're probably going to do some work in between February 20 and 28, and your benefits will be covered for that month. So you're really only looking at if you're out of FMLA and out of PFML, needing to intersperse 1 day of either work or paid or donated time off. Okay, let's put this all together. We have talked about sort of the considerations of how long can I take it? How long can I spread it out? How do I get paid? So the first line there is the top block is leave. So this is a birth parent, this example. So there's the temporary disability period of 6 to 8 weeks. And it will be a specific time period for you as your doctor tells us. And then there's the bonding time or family leave period. And again, it says 4 to 6 here, but it will be a specific time as covered by your employment program. So that's the leave ribbon. If you are eligible for PFML, so in this case, the person's worked the 820 hours in the state that is required for PFML eligibility, and they'll be, again, as a birth parent, 14 to 18 weeks actually on here, depending if there's no complications. And then FMLA has a maximum of 12 weeks, and these things will be running together. You haven't heard much from me about how FMLA benefits you. It protects your job, it protects your benefits. But I haven't emphasized it because although we are required to tell you a lot about FMLA and your rights, there's not a lot of choices to be made for parental leave, and our own parental leave policy lasts longer than FMLA. So it's kind of in the background there, driving our communications, but it's not a big player actually for parental leave at the university because so many other laws and policies provide broader length of time or protections. And then, yeah, let's get to the pay. So we have 3 different things that are sort of speaking to leave. And then during that time, how is this person paying for that leave? Well, this person, in a simple but not uncommon example, this parent is taking their leave and their benefits all in one continuous leave, and they're starting their PFML benefits right away and using their UW paid time off at the same time. That's that supplemental benefits. So they are using UW time off and getting paid for that, getting their paycheck. They are also getting a separate check from the state of Washington ESD for their PFML benefit. And then because the supplemental benefits and PFML eligibility will run out, this person has a longer time they want to be away and are able to be away. So then they'll be using a mix of paid and unpaid time off, again, with an eye probably toward maintaining benefits if there's any month in which it's, they have no other work logged in Workday. All right. And yeah, I have one more example. This one is so much simpler graphically. And so this is a non-birth parent. So there's really only one leave period, right? One portion of the leave period. And this particular employee is new to Washington. So PFML and FMLA do not apply to this person. So without a lot of accrued paid time off built up, they are going to apply for parental shared leave. And, you know, parental shared leave is a little bit harder to plan on because you don't know how much you will get. This person got some, and then following that parental shared leave period, then they are going to use unpaid time off. Hopefully they will be able to apply some, again, paid time off that they are accruing to make up any time that they otherwise wouldn't have their benefits covered. Okay, so how do I kick this whole thing off and request parental leave? For campus staff, you complete and submit a parental leave form, and those are available on our website, which is at the end of this presentation. You request the entire period that you would like to take. We've talked a lot about how there's really two different parts, but you request the whole time off. It would be great if you were able to tell us that at least 30 days prior to birth or placement. That is the expectation. And don't worry, if dates change slightly, just let us know. It's probably better for your peace of mind and for us if you at least try to get that in place ahead of time. I say that because if you're also applying for PFML, for the family portion, they require that you apply after the birth. So you can get all of your stuff ready for us, take a big breath, and then we can help you coordinate the ESD PFML part. After approval, we'll send out communications to you and you'll plug in your leave plan into Workday, because you do need to let us know what you're doing in Workday. So it may be that you're taking paid time off and you'll say, I want sick time on this day and vacation time on this day. And again, your PFML payments are not going to appear in Workday, and you can take your sick and vacation time off at the same time. But we do need to know that. Parental shared leave, we make it as easy as possible to apply. You just check a box when you say you'd like to take parental leave. I'm also interested in shared leave. Check that box and we'll get those wheels turning. Again, PFML is a separate request process. It's as if it's, you know, through AFLAC or something. It's not related to the university. It's a separate process. If we request medical information to determine your temporary disability period, if you're a birth parent, ESD will likely also do that, and we cannot share information with them. So yes, you will do it twice for two separate programs. Nothing we can really do about that. What else can I say here? Yeah, please let us know as soon as you, I encourage you to contact your resource and start planning. There's no penalty. No one's going to hold it against you to start talking long before you're ready to actually write something down. In fact, that's a great idea. Okay, most importantly, if you take nothing else away from my portion of the presentation, and I know it's been a ton of information, please know that we're here to help. We love parental leave planning. It's a nice, it's a different aspect of helping employees than helping them through medical crises and disability accommodation. So please help us help you. Give us a call. For campus staff, that is HR Leaves. For medical center staff, if there's any of you in the audience, I have the email here for them. Academic personnel, it's AP Leaves. And title for students, you're going to work with your departments if we have any students in the audience. But if you have questions that your manager can't answer, if you have questions about PFML, things like that, then I have UW Disability Resources for Students. If you're looking for academic accommodations, maybe your child is being born at the same time as finals. And if you have questions about your entitlements, Title IX is also a good resource for you. Next slide. I think I have one more. Yeah, and I promised you wouldn't have to write anything down. Please start here. There's a lot of content, as you might imagine. UW-HR has a lot on the leave planning aspect. I didn't get to pregnancy accommodation, but certainly if you need a workplace adjustment due to pregnancy, you are the birth parent, then those are available, and we can help you with anything related to that. Same policies for academic personnel. PFML, we have a page just about PFML, and it'll link to other resources like the state's parent guide. Academic personnel, specific policies related to your employment and parental leave. And again, for students, I chose Title IX here to talk about your entitlements. I think that's the end of my slides.
Thank you so much, Erin. That was so much information and you packed it in such a short amount of time, so I certainly appreciate it. Next, we have Barry, who's going to talk about benefits for parents.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Jessica said, my name is Barry Nemeth. I'm Director of Benefits over here, and hopefully I'll be able to give you a little bit of information about your employer-sponsored benefits that you didn't know, and help alleviate a couple concerns that an expectant parent may have related to their benefits, including insurance. So we're going to start out talking about your health insurance, because this is normally the main concern that individuals have as they're expecting a child, whether birth or adoption. How do I get that individual covered? And then we'll move into some additional employer-sponsored benefits that individuals may not be as aware of because they haven't had a child before and don't know how they can utilize these benefits for themselves. So starting out here with health insurance, when you're expecting a parent, or sorry, when you're expecting a child, parents are often concerned about how are their prenatal exams going to be covered, and then how is the child's birth going to be covered. And the good thing to know is that all of the well child exams up to the 21st day of life of that child, as well as all of the prenatal exams and the birth itself, are all going to be covered by the gestational parent's medical insurance. This isn't something additional that you have to request from your health insurance. It's something that is a federal law and federal protection, and it really builds in a nice buffer for individuals when they have a new child, because if any of us have had a child before, you understand those first couple of days can be a bit of a whirlwind, and about the last thing on your mind is actually getting your insurances set up, and you really just kind of want to acclimate yourself to your new child and the new world that you've entered into. So this additional 21-day buffer without any special request is something that the federal government has put in place to kind of help individuals transition as they have a new child. Now, once that kind of transitional period is over, what you really want to pay attention to is the 60-day limit. The 60-day limit is how long you have to have your new child, whether your birth child or your adopted child, added to your insurance during what the federal government calls a special open enrollment period. Now, many of us may be used to the standard open enrollment period every November for a medical insurance, where you can change insurance plans, add different coverages, that sort of thing. And this special open enrollment period is very similar, but it is only open to you for these 60 days, and it is only available for a new child entering your family. Now, when you do go to add your child to your coverage, whether it's yourself to your own coverage or your spouse's coverage, there are a couple of things that you'll want to make sure that you keep in mind. Namely, that you will have to provide some sort of dependent verification paperwork. Now, there can be a lot of different things that fall into this category, but the most common ones that we see are going to be a birth certificate, adoption paperwork, as well as a proof of live birth that you'll get from the hospital essentially on day one. It's the one that has your kid's cute little footprints on it. They'll be able to take that as well to add your child to your medical insurance. And while your child does have these 21 days on the gestational parent's insurance, once they're added to their what we'll call their permanent insurance within this 60-day window, that coverage actually goes all the way back to date of birth or date of adoption. That way there's no gap in coverage, so that you don't have to worry about, oh, well, I have my initial well child exam in 5 days, another in 10. For those of you who have had children, you understand that that first couple of months there, it feels like you're in the doctor's office just about every other day. And so they want to make sure that there's no gap in coverage there. For those of you who are on our employer-sponsored coverage here at UW through PEB, you want to make sure that you follow the link highlighted here on the slide, is that will give you a very detailed step-by-step direction on how exactly you can add your child to your medical insurance during your 60-day special enrollment period. It's a very extensive step-by-step guide. And then if we happen to have anybody in the audience who may be a ASC and under our GAPE insurance program, I also included a link for how you can contact LifeWise, the insurance company for GAPE, and have your child added through the GAPE program as well. Some of the more, the less utilized benefits, I would say, at UW, one of which is the Dependent Care Assistance Program. Now, if you're not familiar about what this is a pre-tax spending account where you, as the parent, you elect a certain amount of money that you wish to place into this dependent care assistance program, and then that money is put in there on a pre-tax basis, which allows you to utilize reimbursements for qualified expenses. And in the end of the day, it really just lowers your tax bill when you file your taxes. I think that's a benefit we can all appreciate. And these qualified expenses are more commonly thought of as only as daycare, but there are actually a large number of expenses that can qualify for reimbursement, whether that be babysitting, summer day camp, the standard daycare that we're more used to. There are a number of different expenses that can be reimbursed, and you can go to our DCAP website, which is shown below, which will show a list of everything. One thing I will notice, or I will mention with the summer day camp, is that it is day camp specific. So if this is a send away sleepover camp, that is not a qualifying expense. I'm not sure why they made that specific distinction between the two. But essentially, if the kid comes home at the end of the day, then it is reimbursable. Things to consider with the DCAP is that there is a $5,000 a year limit. And this is a benefit that you have to elect every year. So in your first 60-day, in that 60-day special open enrollment period after adoption or birth of a child, you can add the Dependent Care Assistance Program to your benefits at that point in time and make an election at that point as well. And then each year during open enrollment, you'll have to re-elect this DCAP participation. One thing to really, really keep in mind, though, is the DCAP is what we call a use it or lose it account. What this means is that while, yes, you can elect up to $5,000 per year to go into this account, if you only have $2,000 worth of expenses, that additional $3,000 that you've put in there, if you don't have a qualifying expense to be reimbursed, that additional money will be forfeit. It does not come back to you. It does not come to the University of Washington. It is forfeit. And so when making your election to DCAP each year, be sure to pay attention to how much you actually will spend in qualifying expenses. Now, those of us who have paid for daycare in the past, we understand that $5,000 is not a very hard hurdle to clear when it comes to paying for daycare expenses. Most individuals who pay for daycare are probably going to cover this hurdle in a couple of months, and it shouldn't be an issue. But if you are electing this coverage in that 60-day special open enrollment period and your child was adopted in November, you may not have enough time to utilize the entire amount. Other things to consider is that while you have a $5,000 limit, this $5,000 limit really is a household limit. So if both yourself and your spouse have access to a dependent care assistance program here at UW or a similar program at their employer, you cannot both elect $5,000. You are allowed to just elect $5,000 as a household. If you were to elect the $5,000 at each employer, you will unfortunately have an unfortunate surprise when you go to file your taxes at the end of the year, related to that additional $5,000. As well as if you are filing separately as a married couple, each of your individual limits actually is reduced down to $2,500 for the grand total of $5,000. All of this just needs to be kept in mind when you're making those elections so that you do not over contribute and then forfeit amounts to this particular program. One other thing that many individuals don't necessarily consider with the new child entering their family is increased coverages. Life and long-term disability coverage is something that most people kind of set and forget at a certain point in time in their life. But what's nice about both life and long-term disability is you can actually increase or decrease your coverage at any point in time. Now, if you do increase your life insurance or your long-term disability coverage, there is a process involved with that, which does include a couple of health assessments and an application to either MetLife or the Standard, who are the providers of these insurances. But when you have a new child enter your family, you may find that you may want to increase your life insurance or your long-term disability coverage so that you are able to cover certain new expenses that you have not had in the past. And these considerations should be reviewed with your full family in mind, as well as possibly a financial professional who can really help guide you into what is going to work best for you and your family. But the main takeaway is that these are changes that can be made at any point in time during the year, whether or not you have had a new child into your family. If there is something that has happened to you, whether you are married, you have newly married, you have a new child, or you just want to increase these coverages because you want to be able to cover a new house that you may have purchased, for example, you can make these changes at any point in time during the year. And what I recommend is that if you are considering doing this, you visit our ISC website, which can walk you through the very long processes, step by step, to make sure that you can get those coverages that you really desire and that your family is protected in the way that you wish them to be protected. The thing that I'm going to kind of end with here are beneficiaries. Now, beneficiaries are not things that individuals usually like to talk about because this is the individual who is going to receive your assets in your demise. And that's not necessarily the most fun thing to talk about, but it is a very strong consideration because one thing about beneficiaries is your named beneficiary on an account actually supersedes any additional elections through a will or a divorce decree or any other document such as that. Your beneficiary will remain who you named originally. So if you have a new child entering your family, one thing that you may want to consider is that in addition to your first beneficiary, you may want to name your new child as a contingent beneficiary. Or if there is something going on in your family where you want to name your child as the sole beneficiary, this would be the time to do it. These, similar to the life and long-term disability insurance changes, is something you can do at any point in time. And if you are going to go down the path of making these elections, you will actually have to make these at the specific company that is holding your benefit. So for example, those of you who may be in UWRP or VIP with either Fidelity or TIAA, you would make your beneficiary designation directly with those vendors. And for your life insurance, this would be at MetLife. For those of you who may participate in a PERS, TERS, or LEF retirement plan, this beneficiary designation is going to be made with the state's Department of Retirement Systems, and you can contact each of these vendors directly to name your beneficiary. As I close up here, I wanted to provide a couple of resources that everybody should keep in mind as a new child is entering into their life. Namely, if you are going to be adding your child to your insurance for participating in the DCAP or long-term disability coverage increases, you'll want to go to the ISC's website and do these changes in Workday directly. If you are going to be making any changes to your life insurance, however, this is the one benefit that you do not actually make in Workday. This is a paper form that gets sent to MetLife, or you can log into your MetLife account directly to make your coverage changes there. But that is the one outlier when it comes to your benefits. In general, Workday is going to be the place that you need to go to make these changes, except for life insurance. If you do have any questions about how to make these changes, or the steps required, or the documents that are required to add a child to your insurance, you can contact the ISC directly at their Contact Us URL here. They have a very nice contact form that you can fill out on the website and send your questions in. But other than that, I believe that that does conclude my section today. And I will hand it over to our next presenter.
Before we transition over to Mara, Barry, I just wanted to bring up one thing, and maybe you already went over it, but with your life insurance premiums, if you're on leave and you're not paying those out of your paycheck, if you're taking unpaid time off, are there any considerations that employees should keep in mind for keeping those premiums paid?
That is a very good point. Yes, so as Erin mentioned, there are the opportunities available to you to take periods of unpaid time off while you're on your parental leave. Life insurance premiums, as I'm sure most of us are aware, are taken out of our paychecks directly. However, if you are in an unpaid leave, there is no paycheck to take that premium deduction from. And once you have had 3 paychecks that do not have any income on them, MetLife Insurance will actually bill you directly at your address of record. So if you are on an extended unpaid time off, you may see that you receive a paper bill from MetLife Insurance. And this is not a paper bill that you should ignore. If you fail to pay your premiums on this direct invoice, they will shut off your life insurance. So we often have to assist individuals in getting their life insurance turned back on after a situation such as this. And so I would recommend that if ever you are on a period of unpaid employment at UW and you haven't received a paycheck for a little over a month, and you receive the MetLife insurance invoice, be sure to pay that. Please do not disregard that invoice.
Thanks, Barry.
Of course.
All right, Mara, on to you. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for unmuting me. It's fumbling around with the buttons. Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm excited to talk to you about lactation and returning to work. I mentioned I'm a dietitian, certified lactation specialist. I do have experience working with the WIC population, and I'm passionate about arming families with the knowledge and resources they need to meet their lactation goals. So just before we get too much into it, I just want to set the tone for our conversation today. First and foremost, the reason that we're discussing this topic is because human milk is recognized as the optimal source of nutrition from birth until 2 years and onward by virtually all medical and professional organizations. And so for that reason, we really want to make sure that people are armed with the knowledge and the resources they need to be successful with their lactation goals. Secondly, I'm going to be using gender neutral terms around lactation in this presentation because inclusive language helps ensure that all families are supported on their lactation journeys. So I'm going to use lactating parent, human milk, chest feeding, things like that. And then just finally, I'm going to be giving some advice around what to expect for your lactation journey, but know that there's no standard lactation experience and there's a wide range of normal. So in my time today, I want to make sure that you know about your right to lactate in the workplace. I'm going to go through a return to work timeline for lactation with some important milestones. And then throughout, I'll be talking about resources, and I'll also end with some resources. So here is an example return to work timeline. We'll cover the important milestones of birth at shortly after when I suggest that you begin pumping, at 6 weeks when I suggest introducing the bottle, and then at 5 months when you can start planning the logistics for returning to work, and then 6 months for returning to work. You'll notice that this timeline assumes that you'll be taking about 6 months of parental leave, but you'll see that there's a big time gap between the 6 weeks milestone of introducing the bottle and the 5 months which are planning tasks. And so for lactation, it's really the first 6 weeks that are most important. And so as long as you have 6 weeks, you can do the planning part at any time. Right, so beginning with your right to express milk in the workplace, in 2010 with the Affordable Care Act, the labor standards were modified federally to protect lactation in the workplace up to 1 year after a child's birth. And then in the Washington legislature, that actually goes even further and protects an employee's right to express breast milk in the workplace or human milk for 2 years after the child's birth. A few things to note: those breaks don't have to be paid, but if you are a salaried employee, salary or really even hourly employee, if your break to lactate isn't paid, you have to be completely relieved of your work duties. You can't be expected to pump and do work. They also have to provide you with a private, convenient location that is not a bathroom for the employee to express milk. A bathroom is not sufficient because it's not sanitary, and it often isn't completely private. All right, so then beginning with birth or shortly after, I want to emphasize that there is no need to start pumping right away if lactation is going well. This is a really chaotic time, and there's no need to introduce additional stressors, and the focus should really be on feeding the baby directly from your chest, unless in the case that you've chosen to exclusively pump, which is done for many reasons. And then I do suggest beginning to pump just 1 time a day by about 6 weeks in order to have milk to introduce the bottle. And I'll talk more about that on the next slide. But many people find that their milk supply is most abundant in the early hours of the morning. And so this could be a good time to pump after the baby nurses, and then you'll have some milk for bottle feed later in the day. It's important to not replace a feeding at the chest during the first 6 weeks with just pumping, because the baby provides a stronger stimulus for milk production. And during that 6-week period, you're establishing your milk production potential for the long term. Of course, there are situations where people do need to exclusively pump, and there are strategies around that. But in general, try to have the baby at the chest as much as possible during the first 6 weeks. So then why introduce the bottle at 6 weeks? What research has shown is that waiting until 6 weeks help avoid bottle preference and bottle rejection. So bottle preference is when the baby adapts to essentially what is the path of least resistance, which is adjusting to the faster flow from the bottle nipple and not wanting to work at the chest. And then bottle rejection is when the baby has a strong preference for being at the chest and then has more trouble taking the bottle. And then I mentioned that waiting until 6 weeks also helps protect your milk supply because you're establishing that milk production potential during that first 6 weeks. Some tips for introducing the bottle. Some babies, especially older babies, might not like the bottle at first. So a few tips are to have the non-lactating caregiver give the bottle. The lactating caregiver can leave the room or even the house or the home. And then another tip is to give the bottle when the baby is drowsy. Okay, and then at about 5 months or whenever you're getting close to going back to work, you'll want to start thinking about the logistics for pumping at work. And then, so up to this point, you've been used to feeding your baby on demand, but you'll now need to have sort of a loose schedule for pumping at work. You'll want to, likely you'll want to discuss the schedule with your supervisor so that they can accommodate your breaks, but also ultimately you do need to listen to your body. And the law specifies that you are allowed to and able to take any and all breaks that you need for a lactation. A common schedule for an 8 to 10 hour workday is pumping 3 times, and you can do that during a mid-morning, a lunch, and a mid-afternoon break. You'll want to account for about 30 minutes, which is 20 minutes for pumping and 10 minutes for setup and cleanup. Again, these are average time estimates, and they will vary depending on your own body. All right, and then after you've kind of figured out maybe a loose schedule, you'll want to figure out where you're going to pump. So this might be in your private office space, or it could be in a lactation room. So if you go to uw.hr.edu and then to the child care and parenting resources, you'll find information about the lactation stations. You can see on the upper right, there's tabs for each campus, and then underneath those tabs, you'll be able to find a map view of locations, and then underneath the map will be a listing that tells you the amenities and the requirements. And so I have an example here of the information for the lactation room at Hull Health. This room does require you to complete an orientation and to make reservations to use the room, but I'm highlighting this one because it has a Medela Symphony breast pump, which is actually a hospital grade pump. And a hospital grade pump has a higher suction than a typical electric pump, and so it can pump milk more efficiently. And it can even help you maintain or even increase your milk supply. And it's used often in NICU settings or when a parent needs to be separated from their child during the lactation period. And so this is a great option if you're concerned about milk supply. It's also a great option if you forget your pump for whatever reason. You do need to have your own tubing for the pump, but that's available for purchase at Hull Health and also other locations where they have hospital grade pumps. Or if your pump stopped working for some reason, this would be another option. And this is the picture of the Medela Symphony breast pump. Okay, and then so now you've got a schedule, you have a location, and there's often parents have a lot of concern around estimating how much milk they need to have at home or with the caregiver when they go to work. So to get an estimate, we can take 25 ounces, which is typical intake, typical being in big quotation marks, for an infant ages 1 to 6 months. It could be more, it could be less. But using 25 ounces as a rough estimate, we can divide 25 ounces by the number of nursing sessions that your baby has in 24 hours, and then multiply that by the number of nursing sessions that your baby will have during your work hours. And that should give you an approximation of the ounces of stored milk that you'll need for your first work day. So an example, if your baby has 8 nursing sessions in 24 hours, and 3 nursing sessions will occur during your work hours, you'll only need about 9.3 ounces for your first work day. And note that that's barely more than a cup. And so I think there can be a lot of concern around, and you might see social media posts of people who have big chest freezers full of stored milk. I really want to make sure that no one ever feels like they need that to start work. You really, it's a shockingly small amount that you need for your first day. And then remember that you're also going to be pumping at work. And so you'll have the milk that you pump at work for the next day as well. You might need a little bit of a buffer, but certainly these huge volumes of stored milk aren't necessary. All right, and now you've made it to the day before work. So in preparation, you'll want to set aside the milk that your baby will need for the following day. Make sure your pump is ready to go. Some people like to have an extra lunch bag for your milk storage containers so that you can store it kind of separately from the food in your fridge at work. Also, some lactation rooms have a mini fridge where you can store milk. And then you'll want to pack plenty of food and liquids for yourself because you do need more food and liquids when you're lactating. And then at work, remind your supervisor of the times you plan to pump, but ask for flexibility. Ask, if you can plan meetings around pump times if possible. And then finally, when you actually do go to pump, at work. Sometimes, and that transition period going back to work, it can be stressful. Stress can impact your milk supply and your ability to have a milk letdown reflex. So some tips for helping with that are to look at photos or videos of your baby during the pumping session and using hand expression in addition to pumping. And if you're unfamiliar with hand expression, it's commonly taught in births that take place in hospitals or with midwives or doulas. Lactation consultants teach hand expression, and there's plenty of also videos online about hand expression. So then just revisiting quickly that example return to work timeline with a little bit more detail. At birth or shortly after, I recommend beginning pumping about 1 time a day. At 6 weeks, introduce the bottle just 1 time a day. And then anywhere between that 6 weeks and that period shortly before returning to work, figuring out the logistics of the lactation room or where you're going to pump, approximating the amount your infant will eat, and then talking with your supervisor about your planned pump breaks. And then at 6 months, if you're returning at 6 months, that's when you'll start pumping at work. And that'll also be around the time that your infant will start solid foods. Okay, and so then I just want to leave you with some resources. Ideally, any conflicts like around your schedule or your lactation needs can be discussed directly with your supervisor. If you feel that those needs aren't being addressed, or just for more general support, you can always talk to your HR consultant. There's research around supportive workplace lactation environments and increased workplace productivity and satisfaction. And so HR really does want to help you with your lactation journey, and it benefits the workplace when you are successful and feel supported. There's the HR website. I also recommend kellymom.com. She is a medical professional who has done so much research on lactation and has a lot of really great, really nuanced articles for any and every problem under the sun related to lactation. Make a quick plug for your local WIC agency. WIC Washington Women, Infants, and Children is a federal nutrition assistance program. Google WIC Washington and see if you are eligible. It's pretty easy to find out. Incredible lactation support as well as nutrition support there. And then the Washington State Department of Health has a really comprehensive list of lactation resources as well. So I hope this has helped you think about the logistics of pumping at work, but more importantly, has made you feel supported in your choice to lactate. And remember that it's your right to express milk in the workplace. Okay, thank you. And with that, I'll pass it on back to Jessica.
Thanks, Mara, so much. We are running way over time. So what I think is going to be helpful here is I know that many of you will have to go on to different meetings at 1 o'clock. We are going to go ahead and trudge ahead to finish up our presentation today. If you can stay with us, that's great. But if you can't, we understand we will be sending out this recording to everybody who did register for the event a few weeks after this is done. Our turnaround time for getting videos edited and published onto YouTube does take a few weeks, unless you have a different timeline, Nicole, that is more accurate. I'll go ahead and get through to my presentation. I was not ready here. All right, so on to work-life resources. So we're going to be talking a lot about childcare in this presentation, but we're also going to go over our EAP and how you can utilize that to help you in your planning purposes. We'll get right into it. So childcare benefit for employees. These are for well, not anymore. These are for eligible employees based off of our administrative policy statement 51.1, which you can find on our webpage. Most people are eligible for our on-campus centers. We have 6 on-campus centers, including our Portage Bay location, West Campus, Laurel Village, and Radford Court. These are managed by Haggard Childcare Resources. And the wait list on these is rather long. So what I want you to think about is if you are in the planning stages and you're not 100% sure that you want to have a child or adopt a child, you can get on the wait list now, even before you're pregnant, expecting, or planning to adopt. I recommend, because the wait list is about 2 to 4 years long, that you get on the wait list as soon as you're even thinking about it. So new employees, before you even are employed, you can get on the wait list. It's just a simple, very basic form. We don't check eligibility until you're getting to the top of the list and right before placement. Harborview Medical Center also has a UW Child Care Center associated with it. It is right near campus, the Harborview campus, and is managed by Bright Horizons. We also have a child care at our UW Medical Center Northwest, and that one is actually managed by a group that's employed by UW and has been at the Northwest campus for over 20 years. It's very homey. It's a great resource for employees at the Northwest location. We do have off-campus childcare partnerships with Bright Horizons and Kindercare. Bright Horizons contract is not limited to center enrollment. It's very broad, and we'll go over the different resources that are provided through Bright Horizons. You do have priority access to all of the Bright Horizons centers. You get 10% discount at their partner centers. So this is a little confusing, so I want to be really specific. They have a network of partner centers where you can get discounts, like Kindercare is included in those centers. I think La Petite, I saw in certain locations, was included in that, but the Bright Horizons centers themselves are not included. So even if you are, thinking that Bright Horizons is not the center that you want to enroll in, check out that 10% discount at partner centers, because maybe the center that you do want to enroll in is included in that list. You can get some discounts. Bright Horizons also has backup care. So whenever you are planning to either give birth or adopt, get registered for Bright Horizons backup care ahead of time. You will need to enter in a lot of information. You'll have to include vaccination records, and you'll want to make sure that's done ahead of time so that whenever you find out that you need care for your mildly ill child, or for, whenever your regular care falls through the next day and you need to schedule something last minute, that you won't have to worry about setting up that account. You get 5 uses per year, and it's available in 3 different ways throughout the year. One is in-home. I particularly love this option because I have 3 kids, and you can have care for up to 3 children in your home from a nanny within their network, and they'll come out, and that only counts as 1 use per day. Whereas if you use their in-center care, it's 1 use per child per day. So you can see how if you have multiple children, having that in-home care can get you a little bit more for each use. We also have an out-of-network reimbursable care. This is for folks who are utilizing their own personal network for care, and they want to be able to pay that care provider. So Bright Horizons, you can register that out-of-network reimbursable care, and you can have a $100 check sent to you so that you can give that over to that caregiver who provided backup care for you. Once again, 5 uses per year. That's based off of a calendar year amongst these 3 different options. We also have a Sitter City membership through Bright Horizons. As an eligible employee, you receive a free Sitter City membership, and students do as well. We also have referrals to nannies and au pairs, plus a discount, so $300 off nanny placement fees, and a 10% hourly rate discount as well. So that can be really helpful if you're looking for in-home childcare. Sitter City also, if you run out of that backup care benefit, you can find a temporary sitter through Sitter City. And just a note, you can also get someone to watch your animals as well through Sitter City. Continuing the off-campus childcare, Kindercare is another partnership that we've developed. Eligible UW employees and students have access to 7 Puget Sound locations. You get priority access. That means you go to the top of the wait list. You also get a 10% discount at all Kindercare locations nationwide. Kindercare has its own backup care for children. You get 10 uses per year. It's in-center care only though, so it doesn't have the different options that Bright Horizons does. I wanted to do a shout out for some community childcare resources. Childcare Resources is a great platform, great organization that you can go and call their call center, which is linked to this, and I'll send out the PowerPoint later for you to be able to look into it. But if our current benefits aren't suitable for your family, they're either too expensive or there's not a center close by, Childcare Resources can help connect you with childcares in the area that have openings, but also accept subsidies that are available. And so that can be a great resource. They also have childcares in the area that have sliding payment scales. So I don't know what kind of openings they have, but Childcare Resources will, and they can help you get those resources. Also, we've put together a webpage that has the different subsidies that are available, Paying for Childcare Resources webpage, and that's a UW webpage. So you can link to the different subsidies that are available, but you can just call Childcare Resources and they'll go over all those subsidies with you. Onto our EAP, I include this because when you bring another family member into your life, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be considered, and there's a lot of things that can happen. Know that you do get a counseling benefit through UW CareLink. So if you're feeling a little blue after you bring your family member into your life, or if the change brings up some old wounds that are in you, please take advantage of the counseling sessions that you get. You can request to have a counselor who accepts your health insurance that you've elected, so that you can continue care beyond the 5 free initial sessions. And know that our EAP, UW CareLink, is for yourself, but it's also for your family, your household members. So you can get counseling for you and anybody who's living under your roof, spouse, uncle, cousin, anybody who's in your household. And that is per person per incident. So if you have counseling associated with the birth of a child, and then you have counseling needed about returning to work because you're really stressed out about it and you need someone to talk to through all the details, that's a separate incident and you get 5 additional sessions for that. They also have legal services. So if you want to talk about whatever legal matters are coming up, we have on-site attorneys that provide unlimited 30-minute consultations. Sometimes a new family member brings other issues around custody. You may need representation. CareLink can connect you with community attorneys who can give you a 30-minute consultation for free in the benefit, and then a 25% reduction in fees for the services continued forward. There's also, they also can help you work through like family law, real estate law, landlord-tenant issues, and immigration issues. So it's a great resource to call and get help with that. Also, kids are expensive. They have financial coaches to help you with kind of revamping your budget to include whatever childcare costs you have, or utilizing that DCAP program that Barry spoke about. And then they have the Family Source program. As a mom, this one is my favorite. It is pretty much, they'll research anything for you. And so if you're looking for a parent support group in your area that you want to get together with other parents who are experiencing the same thing that your family is, you can ask them to do that research about support groups that are near you. You can also ask them to find a meal prep service for you and price it for you. Like anything that you want to have researched and you don't have time, or you just don't have the mental bandwidth to take it on, they can do that for you. The transportation resources I wanted to talk to you about, I didn't know about these, but if you are a parent who takes public transportation and you use your U-Pass and have a U-Pass, then we do have the emergency ride home program. So my concern is when I take the train into work, if there's an emergency with my kid and I need to go pick them up, or I need to, get somewhere really quick to deal with that emergency, that the train would take too long or buses would take too long, but we do have this emergency ride home feature or benefit. You would contact the transportation office to have this, to take advantage of this, but you can also Google emergency ride home and find this benefit. There was another transportation benefit that I wanted you to be aware of, and that's if you are a birth parent in the final trimester of your pregnancy, you can get accessible parking too. Just go contact the transportation office and they can set you up with accessible parking. Okay, staying informed with work life and everything that goes on with work life. sign up for the parenting listserv. This is a group of people that receive emails from me in my office, and I send out helpful information about community resources. Sometimes there's research studies that come out from different schools about that involve parents or children. And then there's just great community partnerships that happen in there. So sign up for that, keep informed. We publish and advertise all of our events and all of our programs in the UW Insider. So keep an eye on that. And then if you have any questions, concerns, or thoughts or recommendations, whatever, we want to hear it, contact the WorkLife office. We have 2 email addresses, worklife@uw.edu and childcare@uw.edu. I will close it out. We were going to have questions, but the questions that were submitted, we luckily, I think, answered them all within the presentation. I know our panelists have allotted until 1:15 on their calendars. So if there are a couple of questions that people want to bring up, we may have a moment to answer them. Nicole, if you don't mind stopping the recording, that would be great.